You wake up every morning believing you're doing the right thing. You choose what looks like a healthy breakfast, you trust the guidelines, and you assume that if something were truly wrong, someone would have warned you. But what if the most dangerous part of your day isn't what you eat at night? It's what you eat first thing in the morning. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear clearly. The standard advice about diabetic breakfast is incomplete. Not necessarily malicious, not necessarily wrong, just incomplete in a way that quietly costs you years of health. And the damage doesn't announce itself. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't show symptoms right away. It happens silently while you're convinced you're being disciplined and responsible. Every morning, the wrong breakfast can trigger a chain reaction you don't feel in the moment. Blood sugar rises faster than your body can manage. Insulin struggles to keep up. And excess glucose begins doing what it always does when it lingers too long, damaging blood vessels, stressing your kidneys, irritating nerves, and laying groundwork for complications that only show up when they're hard to reverse. What makes this especially dangerous is that the enemy isn't obvious. It's not sugar cubes or candy bars. It's foods you've been told are safe. Foods with the right labels. Foods that look harmless but behave very differently once they hit your bloodstream. And this is where things get interesting, because when you look closely at the research, how the body actually processes food in the first hours of the day, you start to see why some people steadily lose control of their numbers, while others quietly stabilize them. The difference isn't willpower, it isn't luck. It's understanding which breakfasts work with your metabolism instead of against it. Once you see that difference, you can't unsee it. And what you choose tomorrow morning stops being a routine and starts becoming a decision with real consequences. The first place most people start when they're trying to eat better with diabetes is oatmeal. And on the surface, that choice makes sense. You were told oats are heart-healthy, slow digesting, and safe. But here's what almost no one explains clearly. Oatmeal can either stabilize your blood sugar or quietly sabotage it, depending on how you eat it. This is where the confusion begins and where many well-intentioned people unknowingly make things worse. Oatmeal itself isn't the enemy. The problem is naked carbohydrates, carbs eaten without enough protein to slow them down. When you eat oats alone, especially in the morning, when insulin sensitivity is already unstable, glucose can rush into your bloodstream faster than your body can handle. You don't feel it immediately. There's no pain, no warning. But inside, insulin is scrambling, blood vessels are being stressed, and the groundwork for long-term damage is being laid. Now here's the part that changes everything. Oats contain a specific type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. Think of beta-glucan as a biological brake. It forms a gel-like barrier in your digestive tract that physically slows how fast glucose moves from your gut into your blood. Clinical research shows that just half a cup of dry oats provides roughly 4 grams of beta-glucan, enough to measurably reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes and even lower A1C over time. But this benefit only works if the structure of the oat is intact. Steel-cut oats digest slowly with a glycemic index around 55. Instant oats, on the other hand, are so processed that their glycemic impact can rival table sugar. That's why so many people swear oatmeal doesn't work for them. They're eating the wrong version. Still, even steel-cut oats alone aren't enough. This is where protein changes the entire metabolic response. When you add 15 to 20 grams of protein to oatmeal through Greek yogurt, eggs, or nuts, you slow gastric emptying, flatten the glucose curve, and reduce post-meal spikes by 30 to 40% compared to oats alone. Protein doesn't just delay digestion. It signals your body to release insulin more gradually and efficiently, preventing that sharp rise and crash cycle that leaves you tired, hungry, and back in trouble by mid-morning. I've seen this play out repeatedly. One person eats oatmeal by itself and hits 180 or higher 2 hours later. Another eats the same oats, same portion, but adds protein and stays under 140. Same food, completely different outcome. The danger is subtle because oatmeal feels safe. It's warm, it's familiar. It doesn't taste sweet like dessert. But without protein, it quietly behaves like a slow-motion sugar load. Over time, that repeated stress contributes to insulin resistance, vascular damage, and kidney strain, even if your fasting numbers look okay. The solution isn't elimination, it's precision. Use steel-cut oats, not instant. Keep the portion to half a cup dry, not the oversized bowls most people pour. Cook them in water, not milk. Then add protein immediately while the oats are still hot so digestion slows from the very first bite. Cinnamon can further support glucose control. Seeds like flax or chia add fiber without spiking sugar. And just as important as what you add is what you avoid. Sweeteners, dried fruit, honey, and flavored oat packets turn a stabilizing meal into a metabolic trap. Eating oatmeal multiple times a day or pushing portions beyond control can also backfire, leading to bloating, weight gain, and paradoxically, worse glucose control. Safety matters here. Oatmeal is not a replacement for medication, and it's not a free-for-all just because it's healthy. The rule is simple: measure your portion, pair it with protein, and monitor your response. Check your blood sugar 2 hours after eating. If it's climbing too high, adjust immediately, either reduce the oats or increase protein. When oatmeal is done right, it doesn't just feed you. It buys your body time for insulin to work, time for glucose to move safely, and time for your organs to stay protected instead of under attack. But here's the critical question. What if the most powerful breakfast for blood sugar control isn't about managing carbs at all, but about removing them almost entirely? If oatmeal is about learning how to control carbohydrates, then this next breakfast does something far more radical. It removes them almost entirely. Eggs with non-starchy vegetables are one of the few breakfasts that can leave your blood sugar almost unchanged after eating. Not lower later, not corrected by medication, unchanged. And that alone should make you pause. Most people don't realize how rare that is. When you eat carbohydrates in the morning, even good ones, glucose has to be managed. Insulin has to respond. Errors can happen. But when you build a breakfast around protein first, you take pressure off the entire system. Blood sugar doesn't spike because there's almost nothing to spike it. 2 eggs provide complete protein with virtually zero carbohydrates. That means no glucose rush, no insulin scramble, and no hidden stress on blood vessels that you won't feel until years later. This is why so many people describe this breakfast as calm. They don't crash, they don't get shaky, they don't feel hungry an hour later. But protein alone isn't the whole story. Eggs contain choline, a nutrient that plays a critical role in insulin signaling and fat metabolism. And here's the problem most people don't hear about: a large percentage of people with diabetes are quietly deficient in choline. That deficiency makes insulin resistance worse over time, even if calorie intake looks controlled. Fixing it doesn't require supplements. It requires consistency. Now add non-starchy vegetables and the effect compounds. Vegetables like spinach, bell peppers, broccoli, and mushrooms contain minimal digestible carbohydrates, but they're loaded with minerals and antioxidants that support glucose metabolism. Magnesium improves insulin sensitivity. Vitamin C protects blood vessels from oxidative stress caused by high glucose. Selenium supports pancreatic function under chronic metabolic pressure. 1 cup of spinach adds barely a gram of net carbs, but delivers magnesium that research consistently links to better insulin sensitivity. Mushrooms add bulk and nutrients with almost no glycemic impact. Bell peppers provide antioxidants that help counter the silent inflammation diabetes creates every day. This combination doesn't just stabilize blood sugar. It changes how your body responds to insulin. Studies show that high-protein breakfast can reduce post-meal glucose levels by 30 to 50% compared to carbohydrate-heavy breakfasts. That difference isn't cosmetic. Over months and years, it's the difference between slow progression and steady control. But here's where many people sabotage this meal without realizing it. Cooking method matters. High-heat butter burned in a pan or processed vegetable oils create advanced glycation end products compounds that accelerate diabetic complications, even if your numbers look fine in the short term. Eggs cooked gently at medium-low heat preserve nutrients and avoid creating inflammatory byproducts that silently undo the benefits. Another quiet mistake is pairing eggs with the wrong sides. Bacon, sausage, or refined oils may keep carbs low, but they raise inflammation and worsen insulin resistance over time. The goal here isn't just low carbs, it's metabolic stability. Portion control matters too. 2 to 3 eggs provide enough protein to stabilize blood sugar without triggering excessive gluconeogenesis, the process where excess protein is converted into glucose. Some people notice that when protein intake per meal exceeds roughly 30 grams, blood sugar can creep up even without carbs. It feels confusing until you understand the mechanism. Fiber is also non-negotiable. Eggs alone contain none. Without vegetables, digestion slows, too much constipation develops, and metabolic signaling suffers. That's why eggs must be paired with plants, not eaten in isolation. Safety matters here, especially long-term. Eggs should always be fully cooked to reduce infection risk, which can hit people with diabetes harder. Cholesterol levels should be monitored periodically because a subset of people are hyper-responders. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness and adjustment. When done correctly, eggs with non-starchy vegetables don't just prevent spikes. They create a metabolic baseline, steady energy, stable glucose, and reduced insulin demand for hours. But blood sugar control doesn't stop at digestion or insulin alone. There's another system quietly shaping your numbers every single day, and it lives in your gut. If eggs teach you how to calm blood sugar by reducing carbs, this next breakfast explains something even more overlooked. Blood sugar isn't controlled by food alone, it's shaped by the ecosystem living inside your gut. Many people do everything right on paper. They eat less, they cut sugar, they watch carbs, and still their fasting glucose refuses to improve. That's usually the moment frustration sets in, because the problem isn't willpower. It's that the gut environment deciding how glucose is absorbed has quietly fallen out of balance. This is where Greek yogurt with nuts or seeds becomes more than a breakfast. It becomes a metabolic reset. Greek yogurt works because of its protein to carbohydrate ratio. 1 cup of plain, full-fat Greek yogurt delivers roughly 20 grams of protein with fewer than 10 grams of carbohydrates. That ratio matters. Protein slows digestion, flattens the glucose curve, and prevents rapid spikes that trigger insulin stress. But the real power isn't just macronutrients, it's biology. Greek yogurt contains live probiotics, billions of beneficial bacteria that directly influence how glucose is absorbed in the intestines. Research shows that improving gut bacteria composition can lower fasting blood sugar by 20 to 35 milligrams per deciliter over time. That's not a temporary effect. That's a structural change in how your body handles glucose. Here's the silent danger. Most people miss years of processed foods. Medications and repeated glucose spikes can damage the gut lining and disrupt microbial balance. When that happens, glucose is absorbed faster and less predictably, even from foods that look safe. That's why 2 people can eat the same meal and get completely different readings. Adding nuts and seeds completes the equation. Almonds, walnuts, chia seeds, flaxseed, and pumpkin seeds introduce healthy fats and fiber that slow gastric emptying even further. Fiber feeds beneficial bacteria. Healthy fats delay carbohydrate absorption. Together, they extend blood sugar stability for hours instead of minutes. The data is clear. Adding nuts to a meal can reduce post-meal glucose spikes by 20 to 25%. Magnesium from almonds improves insulin sensitivity. Omega-3s from walnuts reduce inflammatory signals that worsen insulin resistance. Chia and flax provide soluble fiber that supports both gut health and glucose control. But this breakfast is also one of the most commonly misunderstood and misused. The mistake isn't Greek yogurt, it's what people buy. Flavored yogurts marketed as healthy often contain 15 to 25 grams of added sugar per serving. That turns a stabilizing food into a glucose trap before digestion even begins. Low-fat and fat-free versions remove the very fats that slow absorption, leaving behind sugar without protection. When people say yogurt spikes them, this is almost always why. Portion control matters too. More is not better. 2 cups of yogurt can deliver excessive protein, leading to bloating, digestive discomfort, and in some cases higher glucose through gluconeogenesis. Nuts are calorie-dense. Overdoing them quietly drives weight gain, which worsens insulin resistance long-term. The sweet spot is simple: 1 cup of plain, full-fat Greek yogurt paired with measured amounts of nuts or seeds. No granola, no dried fruit, no honey. Fresh berries, if used, should be minimal and strategic. Safety is part of the strategy. Some people develop lactose sensitivity over time. If digestive symptoms appear, portions should be adjusted or alternatives considered. Labels must always be checked: less than 10 grams of total carbs, 0 added sugars, and live cultures clearly listed. When done correctly, this breakfast doesn't just stabilize blood sugar for a few hours, it gradually improves how your body responds to food altogether. Fewer swings, fewer surprises, more predictability, and predictability is power when you're managing diabetes. But even with digestion optimized and gut bacteria supported, one question remains unanswered. What if your cells themselves aren't responding properly to insulin, and food choice could retrain them? If gut health teaches your body how to absorb glucose, this final breakfast addresses something even deeper, whether your cells are willing to listen to insulin at all. Because blood sugar isn't just about what enters your bloodstream, it's about how your cells respond once it's there. This is where avocado paired with low glycemic seeded bread quietly changes the entire equation. Most people fear fat when they're managing diabetes. They've been taught that fat leads to weight gain, cholesterol problems, and worse outcomes. But that belief ignores one critical distinction: not all fats behave the same way inside the body. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, the same category of fats repeatedly linked to improved insulin sensitivity. These fats don't spike blood sugar. Instead, they alter cell membranes, making them more responsive to insulin signal. When insulin sensitivity improves, glucose can move out of the bloodstream and into cells more efficiently without forcing the pancreas to work overtime. Half a medium avocado provides roughly 15 grams of monounsaturated fat and about 7 grams of fiber. Clinical research shows that diets emphasizing these fats can improve insulin sensitivity by 25 to 40% within weeks. That's not a marginal improvement. That's a metabolic shift. But here's the part almost everyone gets wrong. Avocado alone isn't the problem. What you put it on is. Regular whole wheat bread often carries a glycemic index in the 70s, nearly identical to white bread. That means blood sugar rises fast even if the label looks healthy. Many people think they're doing everything right only to see their glucose spike past 180 within hours and feel confused when results don't match their effort. True low-GI seeded bread behaves very differently. The intact seeds, flax, sunflower, pumpkin, slow digestion, lower the glycemic impact, and add fiber and protein that blunt glucose absorption. When you pair this type of bread with avocado, the fats further delay carbohydrate entry into the bloodstream, flattening the glucose curve instead of creating a surge. This combination is powerful because it works on two levels at once: digestion and cellular response. There's another often ignored benefit here: potassium. Half an avocado contains more potassium than a banana, a mineral that supports blood pressure regulation and protects kidney function. For people with diabetes, this matters because high blood sugar and high blood pressure frequently travel together, silently accelerating kidney damage. Of course, precision still matters. Eating a whole avocado daily adds significant calories from fat. Over time, that excess can drive weight gain, which pushes insulin resistance in the wrong direction. The benefit exists in the dose, not excess. Half an avocado is enough to trigger the metabolic advantages without overwhelming your system. Bread portions matter too. One slice is a foundation. 2 slices push many people past their glucose threshold, even when the bread is low GI. Toasting should be light. Over browning creates compounds that increase oxidative stress, the very thing diabetes already amplifies. Protein completes the picture. Adding an egg or a small portion of smoked salmon introduces protein and omega-3 fats that further stabilize blood sugar and reduce inflammation. The result isn't just better numbers, it's sustained energy, fewer cravings, and a longer window of metabolic calm. But this breakfast also comes with quiet warnings. Some people are sensitive to tyramine in avocados, which can trigger headaches or blood pressure spikes. Digestive issues like cramping or diarrhea can appear if fat intake rises too quickly. These aren't failures, they're signals to adjust portions and pacing. Safety here means observation, not fear. Blood sugar should always be checked 2 hours after eating. If readings rise above your personal target, reduce bread first, not avocado. If digestive discomfort appears, scale back fat slightly and reassess. When done correctly, this breakfast doesn't just control glucose. It re-educates your cells, making insulin's job easier instead of forcing it harder. Over time, that translates into fewer spikes, fewer corrections, and a body that feels more predictable again. And that predictability is the thread tying all 4 breakfasts together. Because now you're not guessing anymore. You're choosing, and what you choose tomorrow morning determines far more than just your next number. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need a new medication today, and you don't need to be perfect. What you do need is one small intentional decision starting with your next breakfast. Pick just one of the options you learned today. Try it tomorrow morning, then check your blood sugar 2 hours later. Let the numbers give you honest feedback. When you see a calmer reading, less fatigue, and more stable energy, that's not coincidence, that's your body responding to better information. Managing blood sugar isn't about fear, it's about understanding. And the more you understand how food actually interacts with your metabolism, the more control you take back over your health, your energy, and your future. If this video helped you see things more clearly, save it so you can come back to it whenever you need a reminder. And if you care about protecting your blood sugar, your kidneys, and your long-term health, subscribe to the channel. We share clear, research-based medical insights without hype, so you can make informed decisions that truly support your body. If you're comfortable, leave a comment and tell us which breakfast you're going to try first. That simple act of commitment helps more than you realize. And if you know someone struggling with unstable blood sugar, share this video with them. It might be the information they've been missing. You're not alone in this. And with the right knowledge, progress is not only possible, it's measurable. Start small, stay consistent, and let your results guide the way forward.